Good morning, students. Now, today we are going to start chapter 5, that is India's foreign trade. So, here in this chapter, what we are going to learn about? We are going to learn about that what is the meaning of international foreign trade, then what is India's foreign trade at the time of independence. After that, India's foreign trade after independence, then inward looking strategy or import substitution strategy. So, here let us go through that what is the meaning of this foreign trade. See, domestic production of certain goods may exceed their domestic consumption. What does the country do with its surplus output, that is domestic production minus domestic consumption? It refers to that when a company is producing something in surplus, then it is in the condition that it can export to the other countries and earn foreign exchange. That is, in some other currency, they will be getting um, earning from the other countries. Now, it export it to the other countries and earn money. Simple is that. Every country in the world exports certain goods and imports certain goods. So export and import of the goods services across different country, it is known as international trade. So here what happens? See, every country will be making or manufacturing something in surplus, which definitely they are going to export to the other countries, and then they could be earning some foreign exchange by exporting such kind of goods. So this is called as international trade, because if a country is manufacturing and the cost is very high of manufacturing in their own country, then definitely it doesn't make any sense to manufacture that product in their own country. Definitely they'll be importing it from some other. So like this, many economies of the world depend on each other for import and export of such kind of goods. Okay, so now after this meaning, let us understand through some points. Like, in the context of the international trade, observe the following points. Okay, so while international trade is based on international specialization based on the principle of comparative cost advantage. So what is comparative cost advantage here? So let us understand it. See, cost advantage means if you look at China, so we import some electronic goods from China like pen drive, maybe some parts of the computer, and their cost of production is very less, so they are having a cost advantage over India. So that's why many parts of mobiles and computer are being imported from China. So that is the meaning that they are having cost advantage over the other economies. So many other countries are also importing some electronic goods from China, because it doesn't make any sense. If you manufacture in our own country, then the cost of it will be very high and we will not be able to um, do this. And if you are going to produce all this kind of things in India, then it will be of a very high cost. So it is much better to import from the other countries. Then second point, a country specializes in the production of that good which it can be produced at a lower cost than the other countries. So a country basically specializes in the production of only that good which it can produce at a very lower cost. Like in the Saudi countries, they are extremely good because in this production of crude oil, and they are exporting crude oil to the other countries. So here we can say that their cost is very low in comparison to the other countries. So their economy depend on the production of the crude oil. So like that, every economy will be specialized in some article or commodity which they are going to export. Now the third point is international trade thus facilitates export of good to the rest of the world at a price higher than the domestic market. Now suppose if we are exporting something, like suppose India is exporting rice, so the price which India is going to charge, it is going to be high, high in comparison to what they are charging in India. So definitely they will be earning more foreign exchange from China. So this is how the trade goes on. Okay, then, and it facilitates imports of goods at a price lower than the domestic market. Then these are gains of the international trade. And similarly, the fourth point states that if you're importing something at a price lower than the other market, like in your own market, suppose that cost if you get in India, suppose you are buying some kind of thing like a pen drive, and the cost of that pen drive it's very high. So what you do, you're going to import that particular pen drive from some other country. Okay, so why we are doing it? Because we are importing that good because the price is lower in the other countries. So definitely we are going to import from outside, and we are not going to manufacture that thing or buy that thing in India. Okay, because in this scenario, the domestic market is offering you the good at a higher price, and the other countries are producing goods at a lower price. So we import. Now, fifth point is also by offering a much wider range, a size of the market compared to the domestic market. International trade enhances the opportunity of the investment of the trading partners. Now, what happens here when they all these economies in the domestic market, suppose they are doing this investment all around. Here in this point, if you are going to just do this international trade, so what will happen when you are increasing, simply increasing the size of the market? Suppose you are just exporting the goods outside India, then actually what we are doing, we are just exporting the good, and we are actually increasing the size of the market, because in domestic market already there is already we are selling, and in the other economies also we are selling, so we are actually increasing the size of the market. So what will happen because of this, when size will increase, many trading partners will also do the investment, like there will be increment in more exporter in the country, and they'll be selling the goods in the other economies. So this is how the trading partner will be interested in this trading activities. Then the last point here is higher investment leads to higher GDP growth. So when this investment, all these trading partners are going to make more investment, more economic activity will go on in the country, and because of that the GDP growth will rise. Now, second point is here, which is India's foreign trade at the time of independence. So what was the condition of India's at the time of independence? What was the condition of foreign trade? What was India doing? The Indian economy suffered a colonial exploitation by the British. So we know very well that before, when India was under this control of British, the British were controlling and making policies for India. So they were actually doing this exploitation of India. Okay, so all this foreign trade was simply been directed, and all these things are governed by the British government only. So at the time of independence, we are simply been exploited by the Britishers. They were using our raw material to establish their countries in Britain. Then second point, the British used the natural resources or raw material for their domestic industrial output. So this point is a fact that the Britishers were using our raw material to establish their industries in their own country. Now, third point is, beside being a source of raw material, the Indian economy was also exploited as a market for British industrial good. Now, what happened when the Britishers were taking this good to their country? They were making the ready product or finished product, and they were bringing that product back to India and selling that product in the market. So they were actually just setting up a market in India as well. Now that was another uh, very bad thing, because it was just like India was importing all those ready-made products from this British Britain. Okay, so that is another drawback of this thing, kind of thing, that this time of independence it was not good for India. Then the fourth point, the substantial export of raw material from the India gives impetus to the volume of the international trade, which has significantly declined owing to the decay of Indian handicraft. Now, what happened here? The exports were more at that time, because the Indians was simply the raw material were being exported from the India to the British. So, what happened? The export suddenly shows that the export was too much at that point of time. So all this thing, due to this international trade, gave some significance, because of there was some decline of this decay of this handicraft industry also. Because what happened when the Britishers were establishing those industry, they destroyed this Indian handicraft as well. So what happened in India, the domestic handicraft, when these things were destroyed, so there was a ready market for the British goods. Okay, so at that time the volume has been increased suddenly, because there was a destruction of this Indian handicraft industry, so there was more demand for their British goods. Now, fifth point, on the eve of independence, over balance of trade, export minus import was favorable. Now, what is balance of trade? Balance of trade is nothing the export minus imports of visible goods is the meaning of balance of trade. So balance of trade was positive at that time, which means simply that we were exporting more and importing less. Okay, then the sixth point, in 1946 to 47, excess of exports over imports were estimated as of 31 crore. Through 1947-48, the balance of trade had shrunk to 14 crore. So in this time period 1946 to 47, the excess of import export over the import. So what was the condition at that point of time? It was 31 crores. Okay, that is between 46 to 47. Though in 1947 and 48 the balance of trade had shrunk to 14 crore. So why this thing has shrunk? Because what happened after independence, we were not exporting those goods. We stopped those exporting of this raw material and all. So that is why the decline was there. So we can see this decline is from 31 crore to 14 crore, because when we got independence we stopped the export of raw material. Then the seventh point, as regard direction of the trade, it was largely confined, restricted to Britain. Okay, so what happened? Our foreign trade was basically just restricted to Britain, which means that we were trading only with the Britain and very less in very less quantities to the other economies. Simply because the British ruler exploited the Indian economy as a source of raw material and as a market for their export. So basically, we have been completely destroyed by the Britishers, and they were actually using our raw materials, and they were setting the market also. So this is how this all this trade was simply restricted to the British only. Now the seventh, or sorry, this is the eighth point. The composition of the trade indicate the backwardness of the economy, as our export included largely raw materials, while our import include largely of finished goods. So it shows the backwardness of the Indian economy. Why? Because we were exporting, we were exporting raw materials. So when a country is not able to convert the raw material into the finished goods, and simply they are selling the raw material to the other countries, also that means this raw material will be very cheap. But when you add some value to that product, means if you can convert the cotton into some cloth, so you can sell that particular cloth at a very high price, and if you're going to sell that cotton, it will be sold at a low price. So this shows the backwardness of India, because we were sellers of raw material and not finished products. So this was the condition. Now India's foreign trade after independence. Now what happened after independence? Okay, at the time of independence we discussed. Now what happened after the independence? Okay, now under planned program of development, the Indian foreign trade recorded a noticeable change. So what were these changes? So after 1951, we started making the 5-year plan. So what was the condition then? So volume of the foreign trade. Now this table one shows the Indian foreign trade during the different plans. So planning, as we know, that is started from 1951. So we can see that the imports and export. So here the imports are more than export everywhere. We can see these things. Okay, in fourth plan also, and continuously if you see that here in the 12th plan, still the exports are less and the imports are more. That means we are dependent on the other countries. Okay, now table 1 shows what? It shows the volume of the India's foreign trade has increased considerably under 5-year plans. So it is proved that if you look at this data, so you can see that this data shows what? Here the amount of trade means 6,760, and here you can say that it has been increased to a great extent. So this difference is nothing but simply are we are being able to trade in high volumes, means we were doing business in large quantities. Okay, now it has risen from 670 crores to the in the first plan to such a great figure in the 12th plan. So a rise of 3282 times. So because you can just simply say that the volume has been increased, because we were simply doing export and import with loss of economies, because we were dependent on the other countries. So our figure has seen a tremendous increase here. During this period, while imports increased by 3,612 times, the export increased by 895 times means here we can say that the when imports are increasing by 3612, their exports are increasing only by 2895 times, which shows that you are importing more, means you are dependent more on the other countries. Simple. Okay. Now it seems to be impressive story. However, there are element of distress in this story. Now, what was the problem over here? See, the percentage rise of export and import has been high owing to the base effect. It means initially the volumes of export and import was very low. Accordingly, even a small increase in the total volume shows a significant rise in the terms of percentage change. Now, what happened? This is called as the base effect. Base effect means what? See, in the initial stage, the amount was very low. Okay, so this is treated as a base. So even after here you can see that the figure are been increasing everywhere. Okay, so because of this base effect, because we are going to take the base year production of it or the volume which was there, so it means simply even a small change will bring a big change in the terms of percentage. So that is called as the base effect. Okay, now that is the reason here this line is written accordingly. Even a small increase in the total volume means total trade, shows a big rise in the term of percentage rise. Okay, this is called as base effect. So this can be seen. Now second point, while over India's export and import have tended to rise, India's share in the global trade tended to decline. It declined from 1.8% in 1950 to 0.5% in 1991. So what happened when this over this all this period of export and import were increasing? So India's share in the global market, if you look at the entire economies of the world, so India's share in the global market has been declined. So when how it declined from 1.8% to zero point 0.5. So because of that we can see that at another stage what happened, we started trading, but what happened in comparison to the other economy, our trade was not that good. Then the third point, it is only after the initiation of the economic reforms, that is the new economic policy of 1991. So after that, what happened? India's share in the world trade has tended to improve. So what happened after this LPG policy, liberation, privatization, globalization? Our share in the global world in this trade volume has been tremendously increased. So in 2017-18, India's share in export was 2.1% and import trade was 2.6%. So after this 1991 policy, what happened? India was able to trade in a much better way. Okay, and a lot of economies were being told that you can also set up industry here. So because of this industry's presence in India after 1991, because they were allowed after it, so all these companies were doing production and they were also doing export and import. So that was another factor which because of which we can see this rise from 2.1% to 2.6% is there. Now the fourth point, again, it is only after the initiation of the economic reforms that change in the volume of trade has become significant. So the same point they are repeating, so don't no need to do this. Okay. Now what is the composition of foreign trade here? What is foreign trade's composition? So composition of trade refer to the item of export and import. So here we are going to learn that what are the item which have been export and imported here. Okay. Now after independence there has been a substantial change in the composition of the Indian foreign trade. Now see, before independence the condition was something else. We were exporting the raw material completely, but after that the picture has been changed somehow. So what is the composition? What were the things which have been exported and imported after that? So the first point is it says that decline in the percentage share of the agriculture exports. So there has been a significant decline in the percentage share of agriculture item in the total export. Initially here they are trying to say that the agriculture goods were being exported to the other countries. But after that we can see the decline or a fall in this export. Why? The first point that the India started using these farm products as a raw material for its domestic industry. Now after independence, there were some industries, so all this raw material which was being exported to the other countries was being started used by the using by this all these industries in India. So we stopped exporting the raw material because such kind of raw material was used in Indian industry now. Now the second point is that a substantial rise in the India's population has raised the domestic consumption of the farm product. The another point they are saying here that the population of India was also rising, so there was need for food grains. So it was simply fulfilling the need or the demand of the people in India. Okay, so because of that also the export fall. Now the second point is decline in the percentage shares of conventional item. Now what is conventional item? So conventional items of India's export include jute, tea, food grains and minerals. Okay, these are the conventional means those articles which have been traded for a very long time. So these items constitute the bulk of the India's export at the time of independence. But with the planned development programs in the plan place, the domestic demand for the conventional items had declined had tended to rise. So according to this, their share in the total export has tended to fall. Now what happened? All these conventional items like jute, tea, food grains. Initially, India was exporting all this kind of stuff. But what happened after when this planning started? All this planning program, 5-year plans started. What happened? There was still in this domestic market there was demand of all these kind of things. So what happened? Again, all this convention item has tended to rise because see domestic in our domestic market in India also there was demand. So what happened because of this also the export was not been able to uh, take place because when you demand something in your own country then definitely first your demand will be fulfilled. So how we are going to export then? So that is a kind of question. So that is why this decline of conventional item was also there means in their export value. The third point is increase in the percentage share of manufactured good. Now, percentage share of the manufactured good in the total exports has tended to rise. Presently, gems and precious metals, machinery, and vehicle were notable exports of India. So, basically, in the beginning, what was happening? India was exporting the precious metal, machinery, and all this vehicle because all these things were being manufactured and which were being sold. Now, what happened after this? This points to the fact that planned development programs launching launched after independence have started yielding the results. So what happened when this percentage share has been really increased? Because when all this manufacturing firms started producing all these goods in India, our GDP started to grow. So all these changes in the composition of India's foreign trade suggest that there is India is no longer a static or backward economy. Means in this point, what they're trying to tell you that India was able to increase their GDP actually. Okay, the amount of goods which the India was manufacturing it has been increased. So GDP growth is there, which can be seen here because of this LPG policy or economic policy which was being implemented by the government. Now after this. Now, the direction of the foreign trade. So what was the direction of the foreign trade here? The following observation present a brief account of the direction of trade since 1915. So here we are going to learn what after independence, in while we were started making all these 5-year plans in 1951, what was the direction of the foreign trade here? Okay, so after 1915, what was the condition? Since 1951 means 1951 onwards, direction of the India's foreign trade has also undergone a substantial change. List of our trading partners has tended to expand over time, which points to a stronger foothold in the international market. So after 1950, many economies of the world we started becoming our trading partners, and they want to do trade with India. So because of that, our trade started, and it started growing very well, and we started exporting and importing lot of articles from the other economies. Okay, then presently, our major trading partners like UAE, China, USA, Switzerland, Singapore, Australia, Iran, Hong Kong, Korea, Indonesia, UK, Japan, and Belgium. So, this is a sharp contrast to the pre 1951 scenario. So, you can see that so many countries were started trading with India. But this is in sharp in contrast means before 91, what was the condition? We were trading our goods only to this, restricted to this UK and USA only. Okay, so that is the big change we can say here that the trade direction has been changed. Now many economies were trading with India, not just UK and USA. So this is regarding the trading partners. Okay. Then third point is a notable feature of the directional pattern of India's foreign trade is that in the recent years UAE has emerged as our leading trading partner. So USA, which was our leading trading partners in 2007-8, continues to remain so, followed by UAE and China. So basically here in India, see, UAE has turned out to be the best partner for India because UAE trade has been really increased. Beside this, China and this USA. Okay, so we are also trading with US and China. So UAE has also done a remarkable job in this export and import scenario. Now, the fourth point is USA share in the India's export during 2018-19 was recorded to be 15.9. So you can say the trade with USA is 15.9. Okay, we are doing a lot of export import with this USA. Now, while that of UAE was 9.1%, likewise China share in this stood at the third place, right? China is here at the third place at 5.1. So the second place has been obtained by UAE. Okay, so here we can say the China share in India was export was recorded to be just 5.1%. So these are the main partners of India at the present time. Now the fifth point. As far as the Indian import is concerned, if we talk about the import, so China has occupied the first position when it comes to the question of imports with like what kind of articles you're importing from China. So there are a lot of things like toys are there, computer articles or mobile parts are there. We are all importing such kind of goods from China because we cannot make it in India, because if you make in India, it will be made at a very high cost. So that is the reason we are importing. So China holds the first place in terms of export here. So it is around 13.7%. So followed by USA. So second number is been occupied by this USA, from where we are importing lot of goods. Okay, so just these two data you have to remember here. Then third point or third rank you can say, is still this rank has been held by the Saudi. Okay, now 6 points. Saudi Arabia has also emerged as a significant trading partner, recording about 4% of the share in India's foreign trade between 2010-11 and 2018-19. So Saudi Arabia has also come into play now. This country, Saudi Arabia, has also increased our its share by 4%. Okay, so India's foreign trade between this just 7-8 years, it has been a remarkable change because Saudis also started doing a lot of trading with India now. Okay, now seven point. It's interesting to note that in the wake of globalization and free trade, Chinese goods have dominated the Indian market much more than the Indian goods in the Chinese market. So here we can say that this Chinese product have dominated definitely in India. We can see a lot of products, Chinese product are there in the market. But if you look at the condition of the Indian goods in the Chinese market, it is very poor because Indian goods are not able to get the hold in the Chinese market over there. So consequently, our imports from China have risen. So definitely we are importing lot of goods from China. Okay, and they our export to the China are not that much here. So that is the kind of thing which can be noted in this globalization because China is doing much better in this field than us. That's why we are importing lot of goods from China and we are exporting, but the demand is not that high. Like we are demanding lot of goods in China of this China manufactured goods in India, so they are not demanding like that over there. So China has succeeded much more than India, harnessing the gains of the international trade. So when it comes to the question of the international trade, so China has done much better job than India. Now 1991 or the great year of great divide. So what this thing can come in objective mass question for 1 marks. So what is the year of great divide? 1991. So why this year of great divide is being called? So basically the steady behavior of India's foreign trade brings out a significant point that the volume of the trade has tended to gain momentum only after 1990. So why it is called as year of great divide? Yeah, year of divide, because after that what happened? Because in 1991 when new economic policy was implemented, suddenly there was a change in the volume, means quantity of import and export has been increased after that. So In this table, see this table 1 for the statistical report to this point. Why it is? Because till 1990, see here, we can go to that table 1 again. I think it is up there. Yes, here it is. So here we can say that after this 1991 means from here onwards we can say that there is an increase, tremendous increase after here. You can see what is the increase. Yes, from 63,000 it has been increased to the 8,90,000, means there is a tremendous increase because of this LPG. And since then it is too much here. Everywhere you can say that the export import figures are large. So that is the thing. That's why it is called the year of great divide. Okay. Now till 1990 they were relying on different trade strategy, because simply India was not that much into this export import kind of things. Too much trading was not there, volumes were very low, and we are simply relying on different trade strategy, that we don't never wanted the other economies of the world to come into the India and do the production. So this was our attitude at that time. So that's why our trade was also low. Okay. So uh, what happened in the second point? We were relying on inward looking trade strategy, which failed to yield the desired result. So, what was India trying to do? See, inward looking trade strategy means what? India was simply was thinking that everything they will be able to match up without the involvement of the other countries. Means they just don't want the other countries or the other companies to enter into the Indian market, and they were simply trying to do all this production and banking and all this infrastructure facility. They will develop India, and India by the help of their own domestic industries. Means the public sector was performing the main role in India. That, and they thought that they will be alone be able to bring the change in the India's GDP growth, but it was not turned out to be fruitful. And this inward looking strategy, which simply means that the India was just trying to do everything on its own, and they never wanted the other countries or economies to interfere in their business. But later on this turned out to be a failed kind of thing, and that's why in 1991 they opted for this LPG or new economic reforms, so that the other economy will come, or other companies also will come from the other countries, and they will establish their business in India, and this will bring the change. Now the third point here is, it was only after 1991 that we shifted to the strategy of export promotion, which triggered a rise in our export and import. So after 1991, what happened? We started exporting all these kind of goods to the other economies. So that's why we can say that then after 1991 there was increase in export and import figure. Now inward looking strategy or trade strategy, import substitution strategy. This is an important topic. Question can come from here. Okay. So inward looking trade strategy refers to the policy of reliance on import substitution and protection of the domestic industry through import restriction and import duty in the area of international trade. Okay, so what is import substitution and what is this? See, in this import substitution strategy, what they were trying to do, they were trying to protect this domestic industries. And import substitution means whatever the things which you are importing from other economies, we are going to make that good in India only. So this will be kind of import substitution. Means if you are importing like watches from other countries, so we are going to make that watch in India only. So this will be kind of thing which you can say that is import substitution. So whatever you are importing, start making that thing in India. That is import substitution. And also at the same time they were giving protection to these domestic industries from who? From the other countries companies, like good, there were some good companies in the other economies, and we just restricted those companies that they you cannot enter into the India, because in India we are already having our domestic companies. They will be performing everything. Like Maruti was there, and it was having a very good monopoly of selling this Maruti cars in India, and there was no fear of competition. So simply all these domestic firms were protected by this attitude of this government here. So protection has been given to this domestic industries here. Okay. So through import restrictions, so they put it this restrictions on the imports, and import duties were there to protect this all these domestic companies. Now, the first point here is import substitution implies domestic production of those goods which the economy has been importing from the rest of the world. This is the strategy to save the foreign exchange by restricting the volume of the imports. So already I told you about this, that whatever you are importing from the other economy will be making that thing in India only. So this is how we are going to save the foreign exchange, because what happen when you import some article or a commodity or maybe any product, what you happen, you'll have to pay to the other economies maybe in terms of dollar. So your foreign exchange will go to the other countries, and we don't want that to happen. So we were trying to save that foreign exchange. Okay, and here that is the reason, because of this thing our volumes of the international trade was very low. Okay, so here it is written that to save this foreign exchange by restricting the volume of the imports. So we were trying to do, we were actually trying to restrict this import actually. Okay, that is why the figure of import was very slow or very low at that time. Now the second point, foreign exchange being extremely scarce, was to be utilized for development imports, referring to the import of such plant and machinery which is essential for the growth and development but cannot be produced domestically. So what they were doing here, they were trying to save this foreign exchange. So whatever the foreign exchange is there, we'll be buying plant and machinery from the other economies, and we'll be setting up good plants in India, and we'll be manufacturing some good products in India only. So for that we will be in condition to save this foreign exchange first. So we were simply trying to save the foreign exchange. Why? Because we wanted to purchase plant and machinery from the other economies here. So that is the reason. Basically it was simply done to just to foster the growth of the Indian domestic industries. Okay, so owing to the lack of technology and lack of investment funds, so they know very well that the investment is not that much in India, and technology is also not that good. So we were actually trying to bring some good machinery from the other economies. Then third point, by adopting inward looking strategy or trade strategy, the government preferred to economize the use of foreign exchange through import substitution rather than the maximizing the generation of the foreign exchange through export promotion. So what the government was doing here, the government was not trying to increase the export. What the government was trying to restrict this import, because when this restriction was import will be there, and will be manufacturing all those articles here, so India will automatically will attain the growth. What the government should have done, they should have gone for this growth of this export also. They should have gone or increase should have increased this export of goods, but they were not trying to export the goods. What they were trying, they were simply trying to restrict the import so that the other good will not enter into the India, and Indian company will be attaining good growth. What they should have done, according to me, I think they should have told the domestic firm to increase their production level in a very good way, by utilizing their production capacity, and tell them to produce more. When they would have produced more, what we could have done, we could have sold those goods in the other economics, so our export would have increased. But here the attitude of the government is something else. Government is not focusing here on export, they're focusing on restriction of imports. Okay, this was the attitude. Now the fourth point here, also the government wanted to protect the domestic industry from the foreign competition. So basically what was the attitude here? Simply the government was trying to protect all this domestic from the other big rivals or competitors from the other economies. The inward looking strategy was all about this. Now what are the good impacts or bad impacts of this inward looking strategy? This can come. So what are the good impact of this inward looking strategy? See, high rate of industrial growth with structural transformation. So despite this green revolution, the percentage contribution of the industrial sector to GDP increased from nearly 12% in 1951 to nearly 25% in 1991. So here all this growth has been literally happened because of this green revolution. So we can say that this percentage contribution of the industrial sector means GDP they are talking about. So GDP has increased This 12% in 1951 to 25% means almost double. So this growth has simply been there, and all these structural changes happened. So many new things or innovations has happened in this journey. So this industrial growth was definitely there because of this thing. Okay, now, so here in the first point we can say that the GDP has been increased here. So we can see that there's a huge increase in the terms of GDP because of this strategy. Okay, now what happened after that? This inward looking strategy, what happened? There was diversification of the industrial growth, means industries. In terms of industries, what happened? There were new industries which started coming into the India, like electronic goods started coming. So the period of 1950 and 90 saw a diversification of the industrial growth because so many different types of industries were coming into in India. Okay, now the modern industry was no longer confined to the textile and jute. All these were old industries: textile, jute, sugar. So thanks to inward looking strategy, industrial growth started spreading across engineering good and wide range of consumer goods. So different types of consumer products like biscuits, soaps, and so many different types of industries started establishing their business in India. Even the electronic good industry has shown a significant increase in India, and this industry is also called as sunrise industry. So, owing to this inward looking strategy, there was noticeable growth for the sunrise industry, that is the electronic industry. It is widely recognized that the electronic industry would have failed to take the roots in the domestic economy had the policy of protection not been pursued. So basically, all this increase in this type of industries mainly because there was protection to this domestic companies. That's why they were able to do business in India. Otherwise, in the absence of it, the other companies would have come into India and completely would have been destroyed the Indian domestic industries. Then here, the growth of the automobile industry in India is also ascribed to the inward-looking trade strategy. And if you look here to this growth of automobile industry also, they also been protected by this all these foreign competition companies. So basically, the growth of automobile sector and all this domestic firms are basically the reason they are simply been saved because this inward-looking strategy was there before 1990. Okay, now the third point is opportunity of investment. So in this inward looking strategy, we can also that there was protection to the small scale industry. So it opened the new opportunity for investment for those who did not have much capital. So even if somebody was not having much capital, so they started putting some investment into their own companies because it was a chance, because there was no competition from the other economies. So here it also implied the use of latent resources in the country which otherwise would have remained idle. So this is good thanks to inward looking strategy, that some people were able to invest their money. Because of this inward looking strategy, all these idle resources were being used here. So new investment opportunities implied new opportunities for self-employment. Okay, so all these things, investment and all, led to the opportunity of self-employment. Some people started doing their own business. So this is just a contribution to the growth of India. Now, what were the bad impacts here? So, first bad impact which can be seen is growth of inefficient public monopolies. So, telecommunication of government monopoly was there during 1990. So, we know this all this very well. All these government company performed very poorly. Okay, so if you want to get a connection of telephone, you will have to wait for many years. So, this was the condition. So, such a poor service was there. So, this was just kind of inefficient government companies were there who are not able to produce even the service. Still they are being run by this government without any problem. Everybody was doing jobs. But now we can see that even if you send or go to any shop, you can easily get this phone connection or sim today. You can easily purchase mobile sim easily, and you can get the services of Airtel or Jio anywhere, anytime. So see, that is a good thing today, but at that time this was a problem. The service provider was very slow. All these government monopolies were there. There simply was not, they were simply just not improving their own working. They were simply being inefficient in their own work. This was the problem or bad impact of इनवर्ड लुकिंग स्ट्रेटेजी। तो यहाँ पे बोल सकते हैं गवर्नमेंट की जितनी भी कंपनीज थी वो सबका एटीट्यूड ऐसे ही था, बहुत ही ज़्यादा पुअर इनएफिशिएंट वर्क था, ढीला काम था उनका एकदम। इसकी वजह से वो एक बहुत खराब इम्पैक्ट दिखा इकोनॉमी के ऊपर, उनका ये एक बैड पॉइंट है इनवर्ड लुकिंग स्ट्रेटेजी का। ओके, देन द सेकंड पॉइंट इज here, lack of competition of implied lack of modernization. So old users of cars still remember that Ambassador Fiat was the only two model produced by the domestic industry in India. So वहाँ पर क्या चलता था? See, what was the condition? Ambassador and Fiat was the old models of Indian cars. In this domestic industry of India यही कार बनती थी, एम्बेसडर और फिएट। ओके, तो यहाँ पर ये देखने को मिलता था कि कंपटीशन था ही नहीं, तो मॉडर्नाइजेशन भी ज़्यादा था नहीं, ओल्ड मॉडल्स की कार ही मार्केट में वहाँ पे दिखती थी। ठीक है, तो यहाँ पर नो डाउट दैट द डोमेस्टिक कार इंडस्ट्री फ्लरिश एज अ नियर मोनोपोली owing to the policy of protection, but prolonged failed to prompt the domestic producer to upgrade their modernize their product. So simply they were not using any kind of technology, and they were not thinking about to upgrade the product, and the customers even waiting for many months and years to wait for just one car. So that was the condition. Again, a lazy attitude can be seen here in this industry. Okay, even the automobile industry was very slow in production. So this all is the kind of things, because if you are not going to make any product in surplus, you are not going to export it, and this will be a problem for India. So that was the kind of thing. So consequently, Fiat and Ambassador continued to the owner's pride as long as the policy of protection was pursued. And after the policy, the protection was withdrawn, the people rejected this car as a good riddance. So what happened when this new policy was implemented, new economic policy? So all this protection which was been given to this cars and all this kind of industry was gone. Now all this new car industry was jumping into Indian market, and today we don't purchase Ambassador and Fiat. Today what you want? Today we want Hyundai, you want Honda, all these good companies, or even this Ford car is there. So many good options are there, but at that time this was the lazy attitude. Again, that was the problem or bad impact of inward looking strategy. Then the third point here is indiscriminated spread of public sector enterprise. So indiscriminated means what? The period of 1950-80 was marked as a trend to do anything and everything through public sector undertaking. तो दिस वॉज द एटीट्यूड। यहाँ पे गवर्नमेंट का एटीट्यूड क्या है कि जो भी करना है इकोनॉमी में वो क्या करेगा, कौन करेगा, सब गवर्नमेंट या सरकारी कंपनियां जो है वही करेंगी। बैंक होगी तो सरकारी, इंश्योरेंस होगा तो सरकारी। तो ऑल दिस इंश्योरेंस कंपनी, बैंकिंग industry, they were simply will be in the hand of the government. Air India was there, so that was also belonging to the government. Railway, so only railway will be there, no other private companies will be there. So this was the kind of attitude कि सब कुछ गवर्नमेंट कर लेगी और गवर्नमेंट अलोन सब कुछ ट्रैक पे ले आएगी और बिल्कुल ग्रोथ दे देगी, जीडीपी बढ़ जाएगी। नाउ एवरीथिंग दिस पीपल गेव इन द हैंड ऑफ दिस पब्लिक सेक्टर। ओके, now the condition or the future of India lies in this hand of this public sector enterprise only. Now so much so that the public sector undertaking in their own bid to play the role of crusader start solving up the opportunities for the investment for the private entrepreneurs. So what happened, these private firms would have invested, प्राइवेट फर्म भी इन्वेस्टमेंट कर सकती थी और बहुत सारा प्रोडक्शन कर सकती थी, बट बिकॉज ऑफ दिस एवरीथिंग ऑल दिस सेक्टर्स फॉर गिवन इनटू द हैंड ऑफ पब्लिक सेक्टर, सब कुछ सरकारी कंपनियों को दे दिया गया था। बैंकिंग, टुडे यू कैन से दैट देयर आर मेनी बैंक लाइक एचडीएफसी, आईसीआईसीआई, ये सब प्राइवेट हैं, बट एट दैट टाइम ऑल ओवर गवर्नमेंट, उनको इतनी अपॉर्चुनिटी प्राइवेट को नहीं दी गई। तो दैट इज द वर्स्ट पार्ट ऑफ दिस इनवर्ड लुकिंग स्ट्रेटेजी बिफोर 1990, है ना, बिटवीन 1950 और 1990 के बीच में हो रहा है सब। ओके, नाउ one can appreciate commanding height of the economy to be public sector undertaking, but one fails to understand the logic when public sector enterprise start producing bread and shoes. It amounts to the indiscriminate state of this public sector enterprise. Now, even this bread and shoes, which can be easily given to this private players, कि bread and shoe तो private player भी बना सकते हैं, but even such kind of things was also been under the control of this public enterprises कि ये भी government इसमें रहेगी। So this was a kind of very poor और bad points of this inward looking strategy कि जो चीज़ें आप आराम से प्राइवेट प्लेयर्स को दे सकते हो वो भी उनको उस सेक्टर में भी इन्वॉल्वमेंट नहीं दे रहे हो, तो इन्वेस्टमेंट कर सकते हैं तो उनको आने दो आगे, लेट देम इन्वेस्ट एंड स्टार्ट द प्रोडक्शन। तो गवर्नमेंट वॉज जंपिंग एंड ऑल दिस लेजी एटीट्यूड ऑफ दिस वर्कर्स ऑफ गवर्नमेंट, क्योंकि गवर्नमेंट वर्कर्स का एटीट्यूड ऐसे ही रहता था कि सरकारी नौकरी है तो कौन काम करेगा, दैट वॉज अ वेरी बैड एटीट्यूड। एंड दिस लेड टू दिस 1991 में हमको न्यू इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसी यानी कि एलपीजी को इम्प्लीमेंट करना पड़ा. देन लास्ट पॉइंट फोर्थ, इकोनॉमिकली अनवाइबल स्टेट एंटरप्राइजेस, अ पॉलिटिकल कंपल्शन. मतलब एनी प्राइवेट कंपनी एंटरप्राइजेस वुड बी अल्टीमेटली शट डाउन. कोई भी प्राइवेट कंपनी होती है ना, उसको शट डाउन कर दिया जाता, बंद कर दिया जाएगा, ताला लगा दिया जाएगा. इट फाउंड टू बी एन इकोनॉमिकल अनवाइबल यूनिट. अगर कोई प्राइवेट कंपनी लॉस में जा रही है तो आप क्या करोगे, उस पर ताला लगवा दोगे. बट इन द केस ऑफ पब्लिक enterprises it was always has been a political compulsion to bear the losses and continue operating even unviable enterprise. मतलब कि सरकारी कंपनी है तो उसको आप चलाओ, भले ही लॉसेस में हो रही तो भी चलाओ, क्योंकि क्या करें, ये एक पॉलिटिकल कंपल्शन है हमारे लिए कि हमें सरकार की ख्याल रख रही है, ध्यान रख रही है. तो ये एक बहुत ही लेजी एटीट्यूड दिख रहा है यहाँ पे. दिस इज अ वेरी पुअर काइंड ऑफ थिंग, बिकॉज प्राइवेट को आप बंद होने दे रहे हो और सरकारी कंपनी जो ऑलरेडी बैड परफॉर्मेंस दे रही है उनको आप बचा रहे हो, लॉसेस में है तब भी चलाए जा रहे हैं और पैसा लगा लगा के. तो दैट इज नॉट अ गुड थिंग अबाउट दिस इनवर्ड लुकिंग स्ट्रेटेजी. ओके, सो दैट वाज योर चैप्टर हियर, इट एंडेड हियर. सो इतना ही करना है इसमें. इसमें एक लाइन और है यहाँ पे, लाइक ट्रेड यूनियंस एंड पॉलिटिशियन अपोज शटिंग डाउन ऑफ द अनवाइबल एंटरप्राइजेस. तो यहाँ पर क्या, जितने भी पॉलिटिशियन थे, ये जो पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज थी, ये भी बीच में इन्वॉल्व होते थे कि आप उनको बंद क्यों कर रहे हो, प्राइवेट एंटरप्राइजेस है, लॉसेस में जा रही है तो क्या हुआ, तो उनको बचाओ. तो ये तरीके से उन्होंने बचवाया. तो दैट इज नॉट राइट एटीट्यूड. प्राइवेट को आप बंद होने दे रहे हो, सरकारी जो ऑलरेडी घाटे में उसको बचा रहे हो. तो इसमें क्या था, ग्रेजुअली द गवर्नमेंट स्टार्टेड रियलाइजिंग दैट द बैड इम्पैक्ट ऑफ द इनवर्ड लुकिंग ट्रेड पॉलिसी अलॉन्ग विद द फीचर ऑफ द स्ट्रेटेजी ऑफ द ग्रोथ. तो बाद में रियलाइज हुआ उनको कि ये चीज़ गलत है, इनवर्ड लुकिंग स्ट्रेटेजी. तो 1991 में क्या किया उन्होंने, न्यू इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसी को इम्प्लीमेंट कर दिया. ओके, तो दिस वाज योर चैप्टर, एंटायर चैप्टर of your India's foreign trade, that is your chapter 5. Okay, so go through it. Any kind of doubt is there, you can ask me. Okay, and do this inward looking strategy very well, क्योंकि यही क्वेश्चन वहां से आ सकता है, तो हमको अच्छे से करना है. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you.